another episode of Hard Factor presented by the Barstool News Network. It is Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. Today we got a packed show. We've got an interview with tech policy expert Robert Winterton. That's in the back half. And then we got all kinds of crazy stories in the front. More Ghislaine Maxwell, mask people freaking out, back to school stuff. But Pat, do you have your AC fixed yet?
Yeah, man. Luckily, called the landlord. She fixed it in like an hour. It was fantastic.
That's amazing.
Bad capacitor.
How'd she do
Good
that?
service.
Oh, it was a bad flux capacitor?
She was a bad flux capacitor. We had to go 88 miles an hour. But good news, guys, on the phone with the landlord, she's like, I've been thinking about putting in a pool. And I was like, I've been thinking that that's a good idea for you to do in our backyard at the Hard
Pat,
Wow.
That's where you say you're, a semi-professional pool maintainer. And that.
Oh, yeah, I said that.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And then I got
Funny
to
enough, I
photoshopping.
used to be a pool boy.
Yeah, exactly. You say that, you just, once you get the pool in, I'll build the shrubbery or make it nice.
I already got on GoDaddy and bought patthepoolboy.com and sent her that domain. So this is my old domain when I used to run a pool cleaning business.
You should do an amateur landscaping one too. Just have both.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll write a fake review. Man, he makes pools look better.
Yeah, so we're gonna have some really unhappy neighbors if that happens.
Oh, yeah.
Not because we're gonna be loud or anything, but because we're fat.
Yeah, they'll have to look at you in the pool.
We're gonna be
day
splashing
long.
a lot. Splish splashing.
I would love to just roll up and watch you two just like in floaties.
I'm gonna buy a water
It's
Rubik's
gotta
DVD
happen.
if we do it.
It's gonna happen every day.
What an upgrade from the baby pool. I don't know how we'll see how I handle that.
It's gonna be at least 3 times that big.
Yeah.
Well, now we got it. Now we got to see it. Also, Pat, you'll have to have the rat tail by then because you in the pool with the rat tail. I feel like that.
I'll go rat tail any day now. I've reached the length.
It's
where I'm
getting
comfortable
long.
with it. Yeah.
You're long enough for rat tail. Yeah.
YouTube.com/hardfactornews. Watch full episodes. And also you can watch them on the Barstool blog. It's everywhere. Full episodes everywhere. All right, Pat, get us going. Top stories.
All right, guys. It's the middle of the summer, and if you're me, that means it's time to give up your dreams of your goal weight and punt that dream of a 34-inch waist to next year. If you're 17 to 22, it probably means you're window browsing for sick posters because you're just a little over a month away from college, kicking back up again. But things are going to be a little bit different this year due to COVID-19. I'm going to run down for you what the new normal's looking like in the 2021 academic calendar.
What's it?
Let's start by talking
Do you
about
need
schools.
the posters anymore? It seems like you might.
Yeah, I wrote that, but I was just thinking, I haven't been in a college dorm in a long time. Do they still have posters? Is that still, is the Pink Floyd butt poster still a thing?
Posters for sure. The girls kissing posters got to still be a thing.
Cars.
Could someone get back to us on that? Yeah. Anyway, guys, let's start talking about schools that we could have never gotten into because yesterday they released their plans. Harvard, starting there.
That's
oldest
school.
institution in America. 40% of undergrads will be allowed on campus each semester, guys, and all of its teaching will be done remotely, all online. In the fall semester, which is scheduled to start September 2nd, freshmen will be given the priority to be physically present, and students living on campus during the fall semester will be expected to leave by Thanksgiving and not come back. Then the whole thing flip-flops in the spring with seniors getting priority. Harvard, guys, will require students to take coronavirus tests upon their arrival and then every 3 days after that. Every 3 days, go check in for a test.
That's a lot of what are they, just sticking stuff up your nose still, or is there a new test?
Well, there's 2 tests. One is up the nose, and then if you want the antibody test, Mark, your cat is screwing this up right now because he's stepping on your inputs.
He's fine. Yeah, he's fine.
Okay, he's fine.
It's for the YouTubers.
One is for the nasal test. That's the actual test. And the other one is the antibody test where they draw blood. Guys, the annual tuition price of $49,653 will not be discounted. Apologies. Yeah, which is kind of fucking bullshit if you ask me. At Princeton, guys, it's going to be a 50% occupancy with a generous 10% discount on tuition. Thanks, Princeton. However, parties expressly prohibited. No parties whatsoever this year at Princeton, guys.
Well, that makes sense. So wait, so basically you're going to only be at school some of the time, at most.
Exactly. If you go if you're a freshman, you go fall semester, you're not coming back in the spring semester at all.
Yeah, this is, do you get into the how it's going to work for not every state, but what we know about for Fairfax County with K through 12?
Yeah, a little bit. We'll get into that.
Yeah,
this is how choose to
this is
not
how it
go
works.
to school?
Will they can't do full capacity, so they're doing you go to school Monday, Wednesday, and this group goes to school Tuesday, Thursday, and shit like that. Like,
I'm going to be honest with you. I barely ever went to class when I was in actual college. So if I had the option to do online courses, I would take it.
Well, yeah, but I went there for like the partying. And if they're going to like kick me out for partying, then I'm not going back.
Well, then you just got to party like the next town over. You just got to like,
I guess.
You know what I mean?
Or you could start a COVID club at quarantine, like start a new type of mixed gender fraternity sorority that people you just going to party with all semester. It'd be great.
Yeah, and just do it outdoors. Just do it outdoors. Space yourselves. You know,
you're talking about what already exists. The
thing.
University of Alabama, shout out intern Bubba, Roll Tide, has been having COVID parties.
No, don't say Roll. Go Tigers.
They're bug
Go
chasing.
Tigers here on this show.
Well, the Alabama students are purposely going to parties, and then they're betting on who will get COVID first. So they're inviting COVID positive people with non-COVID positive.
That's smart.
And then they're voting, like, whoever gets COVID first got paid.
Never mind. You could say Roll Tide all you want on that story.
Yeah,
Roll Tide. I'm going to name my daughter Alabama. Anyway, guys, Yale is pretty much the same at 60% capacity because we all know they'll take anyone. Am I right? Let's talk sports for a second, guys. The Ivy League is set to announce their football schedule tomorrow, but all reports and insiders are alluding to...
And it says TBD everywhere.
Yeah, the season being punted to 2021, the spring. That's what we're thinking it's going to happen.
They're going to get rid of a whole football season?
It looks like
Ivy Leagues will.
Well, they can do that because they're their own little league. They're a cute little league with trust funds. At least 6 FBS programs, guys, including last season's champions and finalists, LSU and Clemson, have shut down workouts due to positive outbreaks. 4 historically black colleges,
They're
universities.
just getting that out of the way now, okay?
Yeah,
that's because they want to contend again for a title.
If LSU and Clemson already got it as a team, can we just have LSU Clemson maybe 6 times this year and like an odd amount of times, and whoever wins like the best of 7 series?
But sadly, kind
of what I suggested about the fraternity sorority. All these teams should quarantine together as a conference.
Yeah,
So the SEC should all because they're not coming. They're
get
online
all
classes
these
anyway.
get all these student athletes sick now, and then let's
You know
have
what
skits
ruins
sick.
this, though? I saw that there was a study out of Spain today that basically said herd immunity is impossible because the antibodies only stick around for a few days. So
And the virus mutates every 2 weeks, which is very fucking cool.
yeah,
Guys,
so like it just doesn't work.
4 HBCUs have canceled games already. Division II Morehouse canceled its entire season. Navy
Not
versus
Morehouse.
Lafayette. Yeah, sorry, Morehouse. No football this year. Navy versus Lafayette, September 12th, canceled. Western Michigan versus Colgate on September 4th, canceled. So we'll see what the Division I teams do. Who knows? More bad news, guys, if you're a foreign student, because U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, announced Monday that international students, quote, may not take a full online course load and remain in the United States. So they're kicking all those student visas out because most colleges are going online only, and ICE said that they cannot remain in the U.S. legally if all their courses are online.
They're allowed to stay for online courses only if they wear a big I on their shirts, like the Scarlet Letter for immigrant.
So we know.
Yeah.
and also we have to hobble them so they can't run away quickly.
They're just taking planes back, it sounds
an
like.
Achilles injury. Guys, ICE had a cute recommendation, though, saying in a press release that students who are fucked should just maybe transfer to a school with in-person instruction. That's all. Just do that. Super easy. Taking it to grade school real quick, guys. Schools across the country are trying to figure out how to reopen. But for public schools, K through 12, and Mark brought this up to me, I think through his sister, they're making parents enroll their kids in online or in-person classes with a deadline of like this week. So essentially they're saying if your kids are coming to school, you need to let us know right now. If your kids are doing online, you need to let us know right now because they need to figure out staffing.
Aren't all parents going to be like, yes, they're going?
Yeah,
no.
A lot of parents are sick of their kids being at home. So my sister, who's very cautious, went with yes because she just is sick of it. But
everybody's going to say yes. You kidding me? Nobody's going to say no on that.
Most are saying yes, I think.
Yeah, except for Well,
it's only 2 days a week too.
We'll see, guys. That story is brought to you by PredictIt, our sponsor, predictit.org/hardfactor20. You can gamble on news and politics, put some wagers on, make some cash-ola. We've been talking about this market quite a bit, but it's heating back up. I feel like Joey Biden is going to choose his VP very soon. It's on the tip of everyone's tongue. Who is going to be the vice presidential nominee for the Democratic Party? Right now, Kamala Harris is leading at 47 cents. Suzanne Rice at 24 cents. Val Demings at 10 cents. Tammy Duckworth at 9 cents. Below them is Warren and some other cats. Apparently,
Keisha Bottoms, though. just got corona. So
Keep K Bottoms as corona, which means if she recovers, she'll be immortal. Big point for Bottoms. Guys, Harris is in the news a little bit because apparently over the last 3 months, someone's been seriously beefing up her Wikipedia page, and the super nerds at Wikipedia that banned me from ever contributing again for life are not happy. Which brings me to my next point. Mark still does not have a Wikipedia page. His name is Mark Borgi. There are press articles about him. We need to get that done. Will's is going to be harder because of the shared Will Smith name, but we'll tackle that next.
I kind of know I like my anonymity.
Okay, none for Will. That might get you one, Will. That might get you one. Anyway, guys, if you want to get a free 20...
I don't want one either.
Yeah, not me. Free $20. If you sign up for predicted.org and don't deposit at least $20, we'll match that 20 with a free 20. So get your free 20, bet on the VP market, make some cash. Mark, what's up in Mask Land?
In Mask World? Well, people are still mad in Mask World, Pat. Even though COVID is stronger than ever in terms of new cases globally. You guys want to hear a couple of stories about enraged people that hate masks?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you do.
It's been a couple days.
Yeah, and these are more
Lay it
fun.
on us.
These are more fun than just the general statistics of COVID. First up, Melissa Rain Lively, a self-proclaimed blonde white woman wearing a $40,000 fucking Rolex, had seen one too many displays of the government forcing her to become a sheep and breathe in chemicals when she was strolling around a Target in Arizona and lost her mind at a literal display of face masks. So she destroyed it.
Did you have one on?
No, and she was yelling like, I've got this Rolex and I'm a white woman. What I can't?
She said,
"You saying I can't do this?"
Breathe chemicals. She thinks
That's
that
just
the
one.
mask
She
breathes.
didn't bring up the chemicals thing. I brought up the chemicals thing.
Oh,
Did
I
she
thought
call
you were
out
saying
her
she was
Rolex?
saying that the mask.
She called
gave her
out. She
chemicals.
said, "What? Why can't I do this? Because I'm a white woman wearing a fucking $40,000 Rolex." And that while she was destroying the face mask.
See, she probably does that everywhere she goes. She's like ordering at Subway.
She loves
and
to
she's
flex the Rolex.
Oh, you're not going to toast my sandwich even though I asked because of my $40,000 Rolex?
Exactly.
Like,
so she
Is it
destroyed
really
it.
40,000 anyways? Like, I mean,
don't
I
know.
thought they aren't that much.
That's a
right?
I don't know,
cheap
but
Rolex.
Target face masks are not expensive. So she destroyed maybe $1,000 worth of Target face masks when she threw 400 of them on the ground, and the whole time yelling, "This is over, this all fucking over, this shit's over, all this shit over," while she was throwing over the face masks on the ground.
So did she get arrested?
I take it back. That's
Yeah.
that's an expensive Rolex. That's
That's
a
like the
high-end
most
Rolex.
expensive you
The
could
best part
possibly
is
get.
she was filming it herself, taking the video herself of her destroying it, and then she posted it herself, and it has 7 million views. So good job for her, I guess. She's now been dubbed Arizona Karen, and later Lively was arrested, and she tells the cops while she's being arrested that the deep state and deep state politicians have been enacting a plan that includes making us wear face masks, and their plan's working out to a T, and that she was hired to be the QAnon spokesperson. That's why she went to Target to destroy the masks. She was hired.
No
by
way.
Q.
She was listening to Q.
Yeah, Q told someone from Q hired her.
Q strikes again.
Yeah, she
They
was
screwed
listening
up.
to the
They
facts.
should have called her Carizona. That was a big whiff.
Arizona's a good one. She also told the cops when they were cuffing her, "You're doing this to me because I'm Jewish, and this is a fucking Nazi game." So let's take it to the internet. Let's see what people say about
Oh, it
Arizona
sounds like
Karen.
she's off her Paxil.
Susie Zoo 29 thinks so, Pat. Susie Zoo 29 says she's obviously having a psychotic break. Heard she was arrested, so maybe she's in treatment. I ask you to delete this. It doesn't seem right. Thank you to the person that posted it, just the video. So,
But it was her herself.
Well, someone else quote tweeted it, but yeah, she wants her to take it down. That's what a lot of people responded with, that she posted.
Oh,
this.
come on.
And then
Come on. Really?
Giamora E. Spence says, "Please get her some help. Of course, after she goes to court and pays the fine and pays all the damages she caused. So fair is fair. Pay for everything, but then get her the help she needs." By the way, both of those people defending her, huge QAnon people. Did a little research on their accounts. Huge QAnon people.
Wait. Well, then why are they saying she's having a psychotic break if she's listening to the Q? That doesn't make any sense.
I'm joking. They're not. They're just afraid for her. I was
Oh,
hoping,
they're afraid
I was
for
hoping
her
you guys, I was hoping you guys bought into that. I was just throwing a little shade at QAnon people there. Next story. Let's take it out of the U.S. because most people in the U.S. are not like Carizona. We've been only talking about. Yeah, I was catching on, Pat. We've been
Great
only,
use of Carizona there.
We've been only talking about the bad people in the U.S. Let's talk about the bad people in France. Like the 5 people in Bayonne, France, who beat a 50-year-old bus driver so badly that they left him brain dead because the driver wouldn't let them on without masks. So he's dead. Yeah.
That's a
The
bad
fucking
beating.
bus driver, man. What are you doing?
Face masks are mandatory on public transport in France, so it's not like it was his judgment call that everyone has to wear a face mask on a bus in France. Apparently, the group of monsters also didn't have tickets and were trying to sneak their dog on board because before they killed the bus
So they were
driver.
just horrible criminals who beat a man to death.
Yeah.
That's it.
As soon as he told them to take the dog off and wear your tickets and please put on a mask, they punched and kicked him
This reminds me of
he died.
This reminds me of the lady in the parking lot, like when like a couple months ago when she was like wearing a mask inside the grocery store, and then people like assaulted her in the parking lot afterwards. This one ended way worse. Obviously.
This is worse. This is worse than that.
I bet it was one of those stupid white dogs.
Apparently,
too.
there's been several.
Mouths get all fucking dirty.
Could be.
Hate those
There's been a ton of assaults on bus drivers on buses in France, and now the bus drivers are striking after this murder. Let's take it to the internet, where Denise smells something fishy. Denise, who has an avatar of an upside-down American flag, and I believe is American, says the group was most likely Americans, I'd bet, in France. And then Benedict Callan says, I'd bet. Why exactly, Denise? And Denise says, plenty examples of Americans being stupid and reckless. Do you actually need proof from me for this outrageous claim? Do you actually need proof from me for this outrageous claim?
She's just going for...
She's just convinced it's Americans
Now,
that beat the French.
She's right in terms of Americans in Europe. Like if you're ever at a bar in Europe and someone's like making a scene and being an asshole tourist, usually you're like, where are you from? Like, Texas? But murder, a bridge too far for me.
Well,
us Americans don't like to murder.
Pat, battle him
overseas.
Battle him for the Republic wanted to point out that, Americans aren't allowed in France now, so no. And haven't been for some time. It's been a long travel ban. And then Denise says, doesn't mean they weren't stranded there with no way back to USA. Many Americans all over the world had to stay in place wherever it was, including France. So Denise has tripled down and is refuting everyone and thinks that these 5 Americans have been stranded in France for 3 months and they beat to death the French bus driver. You're wrong, Denise. It's 5 French people.
Probably French people.
It's French people, Denise.
Committing crimes in France.
Yeah.
Usually. I mean, I'd say what, like 90% of the time?
Fuck you, Denise.
Maybe 99.9.
Not the week after the 4th of July. Not this week.
They're still having a weed shortage over there too, which could help explain that.
Yeah, well, that's really their fault. They should probably legalize it a little bit, or at least in some of their provinces. All right, let's move on to our last head story before we hit the interview, and it's talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's madam, blah, 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 an update from yesterday. And FYI, this is taping around 4 p.m. Pacific Monday, in case this is not the latest when you hear this, because this story is probably going to develop insanely quickly.
Yeah.
Because, pretty much everybody's like thinking maybe she's going to get off somehow. So Ghislaine Maxwell, 58, she arrived at the Metropolitan Detention Center, or the MDC, in Brooklyn on Monday and is expected to be in court in Manhattan on Friday, where the judge is going to try to detain her without bail. Or consider a request to detain her without bail because she has 3 passports.
Good call.
And is obviously a huge flight risk.
Yeah,
So,
good call.
Yeah,
That's all tucked away. Just lane that they couldn't find for forever. Yeah, good call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're going to try to get her to stay in jail while they work on getting her into court. Actually, but that's assuming it's really her, right, Mark? I mean, you still doppelganging it over there?
I mean, we looked at a picture right before the show of a woman that looks exactly like Ghislaine Maxwell in Bulgaria from a couple hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm positive it's not her.
You think they could have got her to sound like a British person and all that? I mean, assuming we ever hear her or see a picture.
Yeah, I think in the 5-month window they could have found a lookalike Ghislaine. Yes.
They could have grown her in a lab too.
Yeah,
It's about
exactly.
5 months gestation period for a full-grown android.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. I'm still holding out hope it's actually her. This is a quote from somebody who used to work at the MDC. You go from living a life like Maxwell to all of a sudden being in a situation where you're being strip searched and having people look into your body cavities, said the former warden of the MDC, who clearly loved to cavity search people.
Yeah, that's an admission of a pervert out if I've ever heard one. I mean, we get in there.
Body cavity Jerry warden.
He goes, I know if I was given the cavity search, she would not like it.
I'm just a hands-on type of warden. You know, I like to get to know my prisoners as they're coming in with what I like to call an inside-out handshake.
That's a guy that's going to stick to Pornhub and not move over to Bellessa. If I've ever heard of one.
I think that
when
may
he's
have been
banging
a
his
female,
wife, he's
actually.
like, my penis is really searching your
That's
cavity.
a female warden? Yeah, whatever.
I think it was. It may have been a female.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Either way, very into the cavity search.
Yeah.
Luckily, though, not the same prison in New York City where Epstein, quote unquote, hung himself. But still one obviously plagued with past issues, like way over aggressive cavity searches. The MDC is going to have to decide whether to go solitary confinement or partner in the cell with Ghislaine.
Please, no partner.
I'd suggest solitary
Come
with a
on.
live feed on YouTube and an in-room guard.
Do you guys
But that's
remember
just
the
me.
guy that Epstein was partnered with? The meathead Italian.
Del Tigliari,
Former police officer.
Yeah.
Well, I'm into this. There was that goat, Maybell, and who was pregnant with like a bunch of goats. And I watched the Maybell live stream on YouTube like all the time. I
Yeah.
think it's a great idea. We should live stream Ghislaine.
Just put it in there.
Her whole prison stint.
Yeah, because that'll work out. Like, have you ever seen the movie Speed? Like, you can put something on a loop. Like it's
Oh, right.
Oh, good
it
call.
would
The
just
speed
be a
loophole.
GIF,
I forgot.
And then you'd never know.
Shit.
Well, let's hope Maxwell actually gets to court and is detained without bail so that she doesn't fly away. And then somehow actually makes it into a courtroom again one day as either a defendant or a witness. It's hard to imagine the list of names she'll be able to expose. It's also hard to imagine it all playing out where we'd actually get to find out the list of names because it's such an insane list, probably.
This is only successful if Prince Andrew gets outed by her. Anything less than someone like with the net value. I mean, anyone going down is good if they were guilty.
What about Billy
But
Clint, bro?
anyone big. I need big people to go down for this to be like feel gratifying.
There's pictures with all kinds, including the current president. Who's
Yeah, what about our current president who'd like to hang out?
Anyone that fucked underage girls should go down.
Right. I mean, people like Elon Musk, everybody who's anybody, Bezos, all the billionaires have been in pictures with these two. The thing is like who was actually on the take in their little system scheme. Yeah. That's what hopefully we'll find out. But now for another discussion about things that are difficult to wrap your head around, we have tech policy expert Robert Winterton on to talk about how digital speech and the Earn It Act are making their way through Congress and changing our Fourth Amendment and a lot of stuff that we probably halfway understood. Welcome to the show, Robert Winterton, Director of Public Affairs for NetChoice. And NetChoice is a trade association protecting free speech for businesses, I believe. I'm not sure if I said that right, Robert. We thank you for coming on the show. You're an expert in online policy, and we're three people who don't know anything at all about online policy whatsoever. So we're excited to learn from you. Thanks for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, before we get going into the nitty gritty of the things we have really no idea about, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization, NetChoice, what you guys do?
Sure. So I've been working in policy and tech policy in DC for about 5 years now.
Okay.
And specifically on the issues that we'll probably chat a bit about today. They've been going on in a really high profile way over the last 2 to 3 years. So I do public affairs. That means that I have to get too bogged down in the specific policy mumbo jumbo or legal issues. Well, obviously I still have to know about them. But my job is to generally work out how to communicate those to lawmakers, to reporters, to the public, whatever it might be.
Right.
And my organization.
That can be pretty hard. We were talking before
some of the technical stuff, right?
Yeah. Like Mark and I used to work in the IT world. We were talking about how getting like coder language into somebody who would be like an executive, sort of like a congressperson would be. That would be very hard to explain.
A lot gets lost in translation.
Yeah.
Right. Or a lot added in if you depending on what you think, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so NetChoice, our organization, we're a trade association. A lot of our members are some of those, big social media companies or e-commerce companies. So that includes eBay, Facebook, Google, and that means that we take part in a lot of these like big policy discussions about, what should Facebook be more regulated? If so, how? How should we be able to talk to each other online? Is encryption a good thing or a bad thing? Those are the sorts of things we talk about in DC.
So on that note, what's your opinion on the policy, eBay's policy of messing up people that criticize them publicly with putting weird stuff on their
like
doorsteps.
the
And
Yeah. Did you hear about the executives at eBay that sent porn and bugs to someone that left a bad review's house and attacked them for over a year personally?
Yeah.
Right. I did see some of that in the news. I'll be honest. I wasn't following it super closely, but the nice.
Robert. Sure.
No way. Let me give you a good answer. The nice distance that we get to have is that we get to focus on, let's say if a specific company makes a mistake, that's very much something for the company to deal with. We get to kind of deal more in ideas. We get to deal with the policies. And that means that,
that's the best gig
companies
ever.
mess up all the time, and I get to avoid that, which is nice.
Cool. Okay. Can you explain an idea to us? So, and I want you to talk to us like a third grade class, because that's really where we're at here.
Well, here's one, Pat. The biggest thing in his area, I think, right now, and maybe Robert, you could agree or disagree, is the Earn It Act that was introduced into the Senate in March, just unanimously passed a Judiciary Committee vote and is moving forward. So, can you explain what the Earn It Act is and what your thoughts are on that?
Sure. So, and this is, as you say, the challenging part of getting something that can be pretty technical and making it more accessible. But basically, this is a piece of legislation with a pretty good goal, right? The goal of legislation is to deal with child exploitative material online. So child porn or predators or other stuff in that area. The problem is it goes around that not by directly going after those that are doing this behavior, but on the platforms where they may sometimes interact.
Also a bad name.
Okay.
Doesn't make any sense. You can't really link Earn It to protecting from child porn. They should have called it like the Epstein.
The Burn It Act or something.
Yeah,
Right.
it sounds like someone fell in love with that name on a different act that didn't stick there, and then they tried to stick it on this one. It sounds
Yeah.
The reason for the naming?
But you know what's a great name for an
Earn It.
act is Earn It. Well, Jeff, it doesn't really apply here.
But we're trying to get rid of child porn, Jeff.
Oh, okay. But yeah, but I already made these shirts.
Lindsay in this situation. Is it Lindsey Graham?
Sorry, Lindsey Graham. Yeah, he's been trying to sell Earn It for years.
Well, so the way that the name actually comes into it is that there's currently like the legal structure surrounding social media, and I'm simplifying it here, is basically when you do something like you write something defamatory on your Facebook or your Twitter.
Yeah.
The person that's being defamed should sue you, not Facebook or Twitter, because that's your speech, really, not theirs.
Sure.
Now, there's a couple of exemptions to this, but the idea is that this is, something that allows social media to exist. If every time someone broke the law using those companies, and you could sue Facebook instead of suing the person, you're not going to be able to run a company for very long.
And that's Section 230, right?
That's right. That's what Section 230 is. Now, it's called the Earn It Act because the idea is, you should have to earn that legal structure, and here are all the things we want you to do. Now, Congress is having a real fun time right now, deciding that there's 1,000,001 things they want you to do to earn it. They want you to moderate content less for conservatives, but then you have liberals saying, well, we want you to moderate more, otherwise we'll take away 230. And then you have, well, we want you to make sure that you're clamping down on this illegal content or you don't get 230 or the other legal content. So it's becoming
where does the child porn even come into this? I don't even get that.
It's a loophole backdoor, bro.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So there's a couple ways, right? So you've got that basically threatening tech companies that unless you take down more or deal with child porn differently, we're going to take away this structure. We always argue that that's firstly not very fair because these companies send a huge amount of stuff to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Basically, when they see this kind of content, they send it to this agency or this organization. Sorry, they're not an agency. And they package it all together. So say maybe there's one image floating around a few different websites. Those websites report it to this organization. They package it up into this bundle and send it to the FBI and to law enforcement to go after these people.
Okay.
So that's the way it works right now. They want it to be basically conditioned a little bit more on this Section 230 thing. Now, the issue with the encryption stuff, and I'll try and avoid the legal issue, like the legal language to fully explain that, but effectively, they also want it, or were originally wanting to find a way to end end-to-end encryption because law enforcement always argues, well, that means we can't easily get access to
they're
stuff.
basically destroying Apple's whole business model.
Right, Apple's, but then, also like think about all of the things, and this probably wouldn't undermine banking, but think of all the communications tools that we use that are encrypted, including WhatsApp.
End-to-end encryption is a requirement, and I was a government contractor, and it was usually a requirement.
Amazon as well, Will. There's a lot of, I thought encryption was a good thing.
Right. Well,
unless you want to see what they're saying, then it's a bad thing for you.
Right. So our argument was that you never needed to go after encryption, you never needed to go after 230. The issue at the moment is actually that there's not a huge amount of funding for child exploitation, or not for funding it, but for dealing with it through law enforcement. There's a huge amount for like anti-terrorism. There's a huge amount for anti-drugs, but there's actually comparatively not a lot for catching child predators. So we've always argued that how about you actually give them money to go after it rather than chasing Facebook around, chasing Google around, chasing Apple around, trying to turn them into the police for you.
Right. That sounds like a more straightforward approach.
Is the dark web addressed at all in the Earn It Acts? Because I feel like a lot of this goes down on the dark web, right? Like, also,
right. So my thinking about the way the dark web plays into this is we always like to make the point, look, if police can go on Facebook, or if police are working with these services to catch predators that use Facebook, that use Google, then that's going to be a pretty good way to ensure that, there's a quick pipeline from if you post this sort of stuff on Facebook that you're going to get caught.
Can't you already backdoor that though? Can't you? Because like there's the Patriot Act, there's the fact that these companies do report things, so like, isn't there already a way to like the NSA could just backdoor to get to the information they want off your cell phone anyway? Why do they need another act to get?
Not if you're not a suspected terrorist, Will. I think it's
need another list. They need more lists to put people on to spy directly on their phone. Do we even have a Fourth Amendment anymore? Or
these guys are sexual terrorists, though.
Well, so actually, that's the Fourth Amendment comes in really, really funny is a mistake we think that they've made in writing this bill. So obviously, the Fourth Amendment means that if the government compels a search, they have to have a warrant if that's going to be usable in court. What's funny is that the way that the reporting currently happens is it's largely seen as voluntary. Facebook and Google do this because it's the right thing. They report it to this organization called the National Center for Missing and Exploited Kids. But the issue with the Earn It Act is it likely turns this into a government compelled search, meaning that if Facebook then provides that information to the government to, go get this pedophile, here's his information, because it's deemed as a government search, that now needs to have a warrant to make it admissible in court. Meaning that in a lot of future cases, there might be information supplied by Google and Facebook that wouldn't be able to be used.
Well, and let me just get this straight here, Robert. It's the deregulation party that's putting this bill forward, these regulatory,
Right. Although it is backed by Senator Blumenthal, too. I think a lot of the...
so it's the old white guys. Why are they doing this? Because they're just going to fuck shit up, right? It's like if you get the government involved in all this shit, it's going to be bullshit.
Right. So I think you can certainly make the argument that, any time is a good time to deal with things like child exploitation. But, why is this being rushed through? This bill has had stuff chopped off of it, added onto it because it's been so controversial. They're trying to find a way to still get it through. And we think it's just looking, frankly, kind of messy at the moment. It was rushed through, you say it was unanimously approved by Senate Judiciary. It was, but it took less than an hour to have that discussion. There was at least 3 senators that said, I don't love this bill, but I'm going to vote for it. The reason for that is because you never want your opponent in an election saying, well, you voted against bills on child exploitation.
Yeah.
But that's...
So it's in an election year. We have to consider those things too, right?
We've already established that the child aspect of this is a little bit of a backdoor. Is this really all just because Jack started truth checking people? I mean...
not the Earn It Act. That actually started
in March.
Oh, it started before.
But that is why I would argue.
Did it pick up fire though? Like because of that?
I think there's actually in our space there's an increasing amount of heat from Republicans who are pissed off about social media.
It seems like all
moderating this, that, and the other.
Yeah, these are also humans that lived half their lives without the internet. Like that's very concerning. If you lived half your life without the internet and you want to regulate the internet, can you talk? I'm sorry to get off on a tangent, but can you talk about net neutrality real quick and explain, like layman's terms, net neutrality, why that's important?
So I don't work on this issue right now, but I used to a few years ago. So I would say, in my understanding in layman's terms, is that basically you have these different agencies that regulate different things, right? So you have the FTC regulates all business, but then you have more specific agencies like the FCC that regulate a lot of like communications stuff. Traditionally, broadband has been regulated by the FTC. It's not been put to the FCC to regulate as well. Remember, if something is regulated by one agency, it's still regulated by the FTC. That's the Federal Trade Commission.
Well, that's just the government. They gotta check everything. You can't.
Right, of course.
You gotta have at least 6 agencies checking.
The FCC
every time somebody
is the famous George Carlin joke: the 7 dirty words you can't say on television. The FCC.
Right.
When we're on Sirius XM and podcast, when I used to do radio. If I said fuck, it wasn't on the radio, the broadcast radio company to get fined. I got fined.
Well, this is why
From
I
the
put
FCC.
a piece of tape over my webcam so the government doesn't see my wiener when I jerk off. Right?
That is really important.
This is
So
all
they just
related.
look at you through the webcam you're using right now?
Well, I don't have the tape on right now. It's just when this is different computer.
He has no idea
You
that
are
we do see
OnlyFans
his
on a
wiener.
different computer.
I see his
hate to
wiener
think how
every
bad
time.
that tape is.
Oh, it's crusty. Yeah, it's terrible tape.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I
It's
see
strong
it every
tape.
time.
Strong
Anyway,
tape.
okay, so the FTC, you were saying.
Right. So basically, I mean, I think that there's a lot of back and forth and like marketing or words used to try and sell each idea one way or the other. But effectively, it's a fundamental question of, your internet service provider. If they're regulated under the FTC only, then that's a little bit more light touch regulation. So that tends to mean more investment. That tends to mean more competition, all that sort of stuff. If you regulate it under the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, that's going to come with like a heavier hand of regulation. They regulate things more heavily over there, as those in broadcasting know. So
And that's kind of what we're talking about.
It's a question of, do you want more or less regulation more than like neutrality?
And that's kind of what we're talking about at large here today, is regulation on the internet.
Right.
So
Exactly.
Wow. And so net neutrality was moving it from the FTC to the FCC, and that's what really
Not just move, because technically the FTC is still going to play a role, but like getting the FCC far
adding
more
it
involved.
on.
Yeah.
The
Look,
double.
so the
double
Internet Act's
checker.
likely to pass, correct? Like it sounds like that's going to pass.
Now you're going to have
What
the
do you-
Earn It, FCC, FTC, Patriot Act. You're going to have everything. It's
If
crazy.
the Internet
You're
Act
going to be looking over your goddamn shoulder every time you jerk off on this internet.
If the Internet Act passes and encryption takes
TikTok,
a hit, like
Google location
Yeah.
services.
like what is it? One of the big companies, Signal, like that does encryption. If encryption takes a hit because the Internet Act passes, what's really going to happen that's different than already what's happening with our data?
So they actually kind of messed it all up. And I say messed it up. We already thought it was messed up, obviously. But we think they messed it up further last week because they basically, it's been so controversial. There was this huge, it was called an amendment. Basically, Senator Graham rewrote the entire bill and was like, hey guys, let's try again. And then Senator Leahy actually introduced an amendment to try and make sure that this thing wouldn't undermine encryption. So it's now created this really weird bill that basically says, if you have child exploitative material on your website, you either can encrypt all the communications on your website, and then you won't be held liable, because that's what the Leahy Amendment did, is it carved it out and said, if you encrypt it, we don't want to undermine encryption. So now if you encrypt it, it's not liable. We don't think that that's perfect. We think his language there are some holes in his language that mean that.
What? Yeah, that's
Did
a
I just hear kid diddling or sites that like have groups like Facebook that potentially could have kid diddling
Bobo group.
groups, the Bobo group, which were dog fuckers that were on Facebook for 10 years. All you have to do is encrypt and you're not liable. Like,
So that's what we're wondering, right? After this amendment, there might be some holes in that, but they're unintentional. So like that's already one messy side. The other side is that if you don't encrypt, you're forced to basically read through everything on your website. Otherwise, if you miss it, you're held liable. So that means that, like, you're doing a Zoom call, right? Zoom has said publicly that they're not going to do encryption anymore. So that means that, let's say there's some sort of child predator using Zoom. Zoom has to go through all of our videos, all of our conference calls, everything that goes through their servers, find those videos and send them to law enforcement. Otherwise, they're culpable for child exploitation.
well, let me just tell you,
yeah.
let me just tell you, they're in trouble because one of the big themes of Zoom was Zoom bombing, people putting their dicks on like high school Zoom calls. So that technically, anyone that was under 18, anyone under 18 that saw those wieners, that's not encrypted.
Right.
That's bad. That's bad.
Well, thinking about how messy this gets too. So, this may change, but currently Google Photos is not an encrypted service.
Ooh.
So that
Oh,
means
there's so
that
many
Google
wieners on there.
needs to look
Ooh.
at every single one of your photos in case, and let's say they come across, right, a cute family pic where they have like, your two toddlers in the bathtub sort of situation. Some content moderator at Google has to sit there and go, do I potentially make Google liable for child exploitation, or do I just hand this photo to law enforcement?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Robert,
That's a pretty
we're
easy
big.
choice for a content moderator, right?
We're
Yeah.
big proponents of the your dick is in the cloud movement.
Oh yeah, everyone's
People
dick's in the
need to
cloud.
accept it.
Yeah.
We have a
If
firm
you've ever
belief
taken
that
a
everyone's
picture,
dick
it's in there. Yeah.
is in the cloud. Unless you're a total loser, your dick's in the cloud. So you
Absolutely.
you just accept that, and that way your dick, your cloud dick, can't be weaponized against you. You know what I mean?
But
Normalized
under
dick
18
cloud,
under
cloud
18 dick is still a different regulation, Pat.
and we're not
depending on the
talking
state.
about that. We're not talking about
we're talking about legal dick is in the
legal
cloud.
Adults.
Yeah.
Consensual.
Well, and the service is right. When it is illegal, it's their job to, they're doing their best to ensure that anything that needs to be sent to the law enforcement is sent to law enforcement. The issue with this bill is that, frankly, you're going through a bunch of photos.
A lot of
How do
dicks
you
to
know
look
how
at.
old that
Whoa.
dick is?
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. You need to
That's
have
not
an
good.
IG next to that dick or a birth certificate.
That's an awful job. Yeah, exactly. It's like a bartender like IDing the age of the.
Let me throw this out here.
It becomes the person taking the tips, the tip hotline in New York City for protesters. That's just now their job. They have created a new guy that only looks at dicks. Basically.
Let me throw this out here. Let me know what you think about this. What if we passed a law that put a mandatory QR code on all dicks that could identify the age of that dick? So you could easily just have a computer scan through the QR codes and pull all the dicks that are underage and leave all the dicks that are of age. What do you think about that?
So would that be a dick tattoo mandate? Is what you're saying? Would all have to go
so like you're born
all
and you get a
citizens.
QR code, like, but it would kind of be like like some of the like the Hawaiian and Samoan cultures. They like
cool?
tattoos. It would kind of look like that. It would be like
Like with the
stylized.
circumcision. You can do it during the circumcision.
You get a QR right there on your junk, and then Google don't need to worry about this anymore. You see what I'm saying?
Europe would have to change their policy on circumcisions.
So, what do you think about that? Is that likely?
I mean, my concern might be that people could use permanent marker and get away with things that way. There's making laws is hard. You can't just tattoo dicks and expect everything to be okay.
I'm not the tech guy here, Robert. I'm the big ideas guy. Okay.
What if we did something like crazy and just allow people to post dicks if they wanted to, and then you didn't, necessarily.
I think that's cool. Pornhub.
Much. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Which, by the way, has 1 million petitions now because there's child porn on it. Literally.
Yeah, they're
gonna get canceled. Yes.
Everything to earn it. Everybody's gonna have to earn it. Where are we headed here? Are we going to a place where the internet's gonna be like a world of where China or India is canceling China's TikTok, and then they'll build their own, and then everybody's gonna have like walled gardens? Is that where we're headed, or is it like going to still be open?
There's certainly a possibility. So, like, I said to you guys before we got on the call that I'm moving house at the end of the month, and I wanted to send the link to the house that we're moving in to my parents, and they couldn't access it because of GDPR and the European privacy regime.
Yes.
So,
Wow. Okay.
Yes,
my parents are in Europe, so
yes.
And the thing with that is you're totally right. The issue is when we're all deciding, well, what specific regulations do we want here? It is going to lead to a scenario where not every jurisdiction, not every American can access every website in the world. Not every European can access every website in the world.
1984, basically, is like.
Well, and on top of that, you've got the big issue of that, regardless of whether I can access a European website, I do think we've started entering an era where, what is the internet fundamentally? It is fundamentally like the way that we access information, the way that we communicate information. And what's going on right now is you have politicians in both the United States, but in many places all over the world, basically threatening these online companies with regulation unless they use information in the right way. And for example, Trump's executive order is a perfect example of this.
Right.
Twitter decided to slap on something onto a tweet of his, and we can, discuss whether that specific decision was right or wrong.
I got fact check. I thought it was cool.
Will did get fact checked, and we celebrated it. It was awesome. It was like, woo! One of us, yeah. Then I tried to replicate it, and I couldn't. I did the same type of tweets with the same verbiage, and that Twitter didn't fact check me, so I felt left out. Yeah.
But yeah, basically, obviously, Trump didn't like it, did he? And went on a whole thing about it and passed his executive order. But really, what's going on there? Twitter has opinions, and Trump doesn't like that. So Trump has decided that unless Twitter is going to treat his views online, so treat the information about him in the way that he wants, he's going to attack them using government. That the entire point of the First Amendment, the entire point of our Bill of Rights, is to kind of stop stuff like that happening. So it is really bad that in this country we're allowing, and it's not just the Republicans. On the Democratic side, talk about deep fakes and misinformation. You're still saying unless you use information correctly, we're going to find a way to hurt you. And that's not a good place for us to be in.
No, punitive use of the internet is not going to be good for anybody.
Now, obviously, if Twitter or Facebook or these people, they're companies that will have to deal with this. And if you have an account on there, they can, shut you down or whatever. But for going to specific websites and stuff like that, Is there any verbiage about VPNs or anything in these bills, like the Earn It Act, like
Virtual private networks.
Yeah, virtual private networks.
Yeah.
Can't you? Isn't that like a workaround to be able to get around all this regulation?
So VPNs are not in the Earn It Act specifically, and I'll say that actually VPNs have not been a huge topic of discussion in DC when it comes to a lot of these issues.
They will be.
Olds don't know about it.
Yeah, they will be at some point.
Yeah, so maybe we should just cut the conversation
Yeah,
right here. Let's just
never mind. Yeah.
Never heard of
but
them.
so also I think a big part of it's political. VPNs aren't from big companies, and most people don't know about them. Everyone knows what Facebook is, and every lawmaker wants to go back to their constituency this November, go back to the the people they represent, and said, "Look, I roughed up Facebook for you. I went after Facebook for you." And people, obviously not everyone loves that, but I think that that's a good. A lot of politicians are seeing this as an opportunity. Go after these big companies that it's kind of in fashion to attack right now, so you can try and sell it on the doorstep back home.
But
Yeah,
they're really attacking free speech, though.
to me, it sounds like when like police officers would pose with like a drug bust of marijuana, and they all took pictures of like pounds of marijuana, but that doesn't really solve anything. It's like Facebook with like 100 pictures of naked kids. So like, look, we got this group. Like, it doesn't
No,
really
I think
solve
that's the
anything.
perfect analogy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we had this fight on a different issue in 2018 called Sesta Fosta. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It was basically, there's a lot of differences with it, but the fundamental issue was the same. Politicians were telling Google, Facebook, these platforms, you don't do enough to deal with sex trafficking. Now, no one really wanted to talk about in DC how a lot of numbers for sex trafficking are actual sex workers who are in this industry. That's not to say they all are by any means.
Yeah,
That have
but
slept
that
with
wasn't
the
a whole
that have
picture.
slept with the congressman.
Right. But how do you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah. There's probably.
And that basically, you're dealing with, people who are, they want to go home and say, look, I passed or I introduced this anti-sex trafficking bill. They don't care that there are numbers coming out of San Francisco that because they've tried to get rid of all sex work online, that now it's having to move back onto the streets, which means a resurgence of, pimps who are really abusive towards their workers. That also increases violence on the streets as well. They don't really, that's not what they want to talk
Yeah,
about. What they
it's
wanna
a
talk about is
shiny,
they
it's a
fried
shiny
people.
metal. It's a shiny metal to knock Facebook, which everyone knows, as opposed to dealing with the dark web and VPN, which is where it's all really going down.
So,
Yeah.
so Robert, in closing, where do we send our dick pics of protest?
I mean, I'm not going to say no.
Yeah, all right. Let's zoom
should,
it up.
Should we address it to
Zoom.
Graham's office or?
Yeah, sure. Why not? See what
Yeah.
it does.
That's the office. All right.
Okay, I'm putting that on you.
We'll send him a USB.
Yeah.
Yes,
Full
right.
of
Keep it
dicks, yeah.
offline.
Yeah.
Well, Robert, thank you so much for joining us, man. I love the R2D2 on the set behind you, by the way. It looks very
Thanks,
nice.
thanks.
It looks very, very professional. And I appreciate you coming on, educating us a little bit about the internet, and we've all learned a little bit today.
Yeah, good luck. Busy times ahead for you, it sounds like. So
Right.
enjoy.
Yeah, no, it'll be a busy few months. Normally summer's quieter for us. Not this year, but whatever.
All right, huge thanks to Robert for coming on again. I'm going to start keeping a track of our official Hard Factor platform, and I think so far legal weed and dick in the cloud education are the only two things that are like on there for sure.
Yep, those are the tenets of what the show is.
We're
They're
gonna
just
legalize
important
weed.
issues to us.
We're gonna legalize weed, and we're gonna teach that anyone over the age of 18 shouldn't freak out about having their dick in the cloud. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's de-weaponizing, disarming the haters who coming at you with an old dick pic that's in the cloud, because
You don't need to go
Everyone-
all fucking gawker or what anti-gawker like Hulk Hogan or whatever. Your dick's in the cloud, all right?
Dicks are in the cloud. And that's going to do it for Hard Factor today. As always, thank you for listening. Tune into Hard Factor Radio today on Sirius XM Power 85, Barstool Radio at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can double up on Hard Factor. It's a free trial at SiriusXM.com. Make sure to follow Barstool News Network and Hard Factor News on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok if you're into that kind of thing. Even after that convo with Robert, follow Pat Cassidy at Hard Factor Pat, Mark Borgi at Hard Factor Mark, Will Smith at Hard Factor Will on Twitter and Instagram. And most importantly, have a great fucking Tuesday.